Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the questions and answers session, I would like to link our exchanges to the general theme of today's conference, namely opportunities, success stories, and challenges. So you learned a lot already about Estonia, about the whole evolution of migration and integration policies. What can in your opinion Estonia learn from the country case studies that we have discussed so far? And I would like to reverse the sequence now and start with Ines.
Well, it's a really challenging question because, the situation in Latvia is that we always look what our Nordic neighbors are doing, and we are doing afterwards. This was the case also regarding, for instance, citizenship law. Estonians are our neighbors, which we are looking as a masters, let's say. Okay, but and also I would like to say that regarding the MIPEX, this index, we are the last place there, so it's very difficult to really present any good examples. At the same time, having said this, I would like to say that I have an impression that in Estonia, Russians are receive more negative attitudes in terms of marginalization, which is not the case of Latvia. And so probably this is something that Estonians have to consider, that, to change, this is not easy, but not to look on Russians as marginalized group in some cases as it happens. Yeah, so it's the main thing I could say from Latvian experience.
Thank you very much. Giedre?
Yes, yesterday when I was listening about the experiences of Estonian case, for me it was very interesting to hear when you are talking about the integration, we are first of all talking about the integration of people who are already born in the country, about a minority. And I think that, I don't know if we can really learn something from Lithuania, even though I think that we are quite improving well. But still, as I said, we have like more proper integration policy measures on paper, but not in practice. We still have to move forward on this. But I think there are two important points. First of all, it is very important to talk about integration as two-way process, that both host society and also migrants themselves, minorities representatives themselves, should be responsible for integration. And also it is very important to talk about the incorporation, proper incorporation of migrants into the society, that we would be able to participate in any process, in decision-making, consultations, etc. Because I think that what it is really like, for instance, in the Lithuania case, if we're looking in the MIPEX results, we can see that the greatest gaps are in these areas that talks about the feeling of the equal member of the society, both from nationality side and also in participating in the society as equal member.
Thank you. Pasi?
Thank you. Very valuable words have been said already. I do not know what is the situation today, but at least there was a time that Estonians were not too fond of hearing from Finns what they should do. I think I could start by criticizing now my own country a little bit. In a sense that if we look at the MIPEX scale, that Sweden and Finland are there at the top, and Latvia and Lithuania are at the bottom, and Estonia somewhere there in between, it really seems as if there is a huge distance between these countries. But if we would look more closely at how Finnish and Swedish policies have been implemented and how the sometimes quite solemn objectives have been achieved, I'm quite sure that the difference between these 5 countries would be less than what it seems. So my lesson, my advice actually is that even though laws and institutional arrangements are important in order to achieve equality, for example, those laws and policies are not much worth if they are not properly implemented as well, if there is no true practice behind the words.
Thank you very much. And now, Germany.
Wow, there are so many important arguments have already been given, and as I pointed out, Germany is struggling with that topic of integration. And as it maybe also turned out from my presentation, I'm not really favorizing the notion of integration at all, because I think it is contested. It is in the political usage. It is in Germany mostly the meaning of assimilation, like that those who are not what you perceive as typical German, like looking German, speaking German, behaving German, they should assimilate. And this doesn't bring us any further in a society which is so diverse as we are in Germany. And I was really surprised to hear about the Estonian example, because I was not really aware about this large Russian minority, which is not a national minority in the meaning, in the interpretation how we have this in Germany, where we differentiate between national minorities which are in place forever, like the Sorbian and the Danish, which have minority rights, which also means they have linguistic rights, like bilingual street signs and bilingual language in the regions where they live. And on the other hand, the imported minorities, which have immigrated for various reasons, and which don't have those rights, and where you claim that those have to adapt to the perceived national language, behavior, and so on. And I mean, in practical terms, that makes no sense. Why should you differentiate between those groups? So I think it's more to present an invitation to a country narrative which, whatever, has multi languages or only one language, but to make an invitation to join this common narrative, and to ease the way towards that by doing diversity training to the whole situation. In academia, we call those local policy approaches often whole of community approaches, meaning that you should never do politics which are only focusing on one group that perceivedly needs support, but whatever you do, it should be of benefit for the whole community. So doing really, for example, not only language classes in school for the immigrant children, but doing diversity training for all children. And telling them that it's of benefit to be multilingual, to be multicultural, to be open to the world, that this is of benefit to all of us. But as I said from the German example, that's a constant challenge and a constant debate going on, and it's not made easier by recent politicization processes, which are very much pushed by social media, which are also very, very diverse and not very easy to control.
Thank you very much. So whole of community, whole of society, and maybe whole of government approach even. Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions from in-person and online audience. I will take the liberty of picking some of them. Two are very quite general, and I think any of you can answer. What is the role of local and municipal level integration? Should this be enhanced, considering the fact that majority of migrants live in the cities? And the second question is about COVID. How pandemic influenced both the integration outcomes and integration policies in your countries or in your region? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Go ahead.
Actually, in Lithuania, I think that integration on municipal level is just starting to be creating, because at the moment, Diversity Development Group has like a huge project which we implement in six different municipalities. First of all, what we did, we studied the needs of third country nationals and also what kind of services municipalities can propose, and as well as how these services are adapted to special needs of foreign country nationals, especially talking about the language perspective. And the outcome of this project should be that all municipalities should prepare so-called like strategic plans that integration perspective of third country national would be included. So I think it's very important, but we have first of all probably to start from the national level, because municipalities do not have so much power to do something in many cases. So what we are recommending mostly for them after the study, it's very, very practical things, for instance, to provide information for newly arrivals, because majority of the people were saying that we do not receive very simple information, like, I don't know, how to go by bus, or I don't know where to go, how the healthcare system works. And I think it's quite, the things that's quite easy implemented in practice, not so hard to put information in one paper. So, yeah, but I think that we will need some time and changes on this, but I'm really happy that we already started, because it's, I think it was very correctly mentioned in the question that municipal level is very, very important integration, because everything probably starts, from the local community and persons that were very close.
Thank you very much. Brigitte, I suppose that in Germany it's more complicated than that, during the taking into consideration the structure of the country. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are a federal country, and which means it's a multi-level governance structure. But in fact, the answer is very easy. The municipal level is the important level for any question of integration, because that's where people in practice arrive and where they meet and mix with others. So the municipal level has a very strong role in shaping integration policies, but also in shaping the engagement of the society, of civil society organizations, be it migrant organizations or other organizations, but really bringing them together, for example, mainstreaming processes on the local level. But of course, for many aspects of local migration and integration policies, they are dependent on funds, on funding, and there again it becomes complicated, because it's always a mixture of own funding, of state funding, federal level funding, and also of EU funding. And so the second question, which you still have to answer on the
it's lessons learned from COVID,
Exactly.
and how it influenced the integration outcomes and policies.
Yeah, just shortly, I will shortly finish with the COVID situation. Yeah, I mean, this was really a rollback of integration success, and now I use the word integration as a practical expression, notably of those humanitarian migrants who arrived since 2015. They were on a really good way. We can see that if we monitor the labor market integration, they really were very quick and very successful in integrating in the labor market. However, as this is usual, unfortunately normal for international migrants, mainly in low qualified jobs and in less secure jobs. And mainly these are branches of the labor market which were mostly affected by COVID, such as tourism, gastronomy, and so on. And so many of them lost their jobs. And as being in the job is also a major pathway towards integration, towards meeting others, towards learning a language and so on. This was a major rollback. So labor market, and the second, education. I mean, we have in Germany not such a sophisticated digital infrastructure as you have it here in Estonia. And the schools really struggled with digital education, and meaning that social stratifications were again very relevant for homeschooling, so that children from immigrant families, from refugee families, or those families who are even still living in a group accommodation, don't have access to internet, don't have a laptop. They really had a very bad time, and really big loss of time, of education time, and it will be a major challenge to catch up in the next years.
Giedre, would you like to add to this?
I think that the situation in Lithuania is more or less the same, because majority of migrants work like in construction years, I don't know, services, different services. So I think it was the same thing, that many of them lost their jobs. There are some problems with education, because some children do not have like proper computers and anything. So fortunately that some NGOs was initiating some kind of social campaigns in order to collect and help, also inviting volunteers to come home and to help, with all these things. And maybe one more thing that I would like to add is language learning, which was also like an issue, because a lot of people just was not able to continue language courses like online, or even there were no possibilities to make such courses. So I think that this issue was also one of the topics that was a great challenge during the COVID time.
Thank you. Pasi, Ines, would you like to reflect on either COVID or the role of municipal level in integration?
Yes, I would like to add about this municipal level. Definitely in Riga, our capital, the services regarding immigrants are much more developed. Also regarding the integration of Russian minority, whereas the municipal courses provided for language issues, there is the integration information center in Riga. The problems are outside of the Riga, because there's not so many resources to provide such services. Although we have regional coordinations regarding integration of immigrants also in regions, but of course both migrants are not so many out of Riga, and services are not so much provided as well. So this is our situation regarding that.
I could say something about the role of municipalities and local communities, because the city of Helsinki pays my salary. So I of course like to put forward the message that cities are important, and no doubt that is also so. At the same time, what we can see in some European countries, and a little bit also in Finland, is that if you give too much leeway to local authorities, there is a risk that the ways integration services, for example, are being provided starts increasing, that in a neighboring city things are doing completely otherwise than in the other city. And of course it might be dependent on how much will there is in those local communities to invest in these services. So I think that the national level of coordination is also very important. There should be a dialogue between the state level, the regional level, and the local level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have one more question on my list, and it is related to the global competition for the talents for best and the brightest. Yeah, we discussed it a bit during our conference already. The question is how attraction and integration policies might be further aligned, or how integration measures can help us attract migrants. You rightly said that the focus was a bit on who is already there, not necessarily about the new arrivals. So, yeah, what is your take on this, on the addressing, as I understand from the question, on addressing the current and future labor market needs? Is there anyone who would like to start?
I would like to start. Well, yeah. Well, again, as I said, Latvia is looking what Estonia is doing, and Estonia has developed their visas for highly skilled, these digital nomad visas, and this is an initiative which Latvian government is now developing and planning to implement. Well, it's something that is very trendy, I guess, that how to attract highly skilled migrants and to make country more competitive and things like that, and especially regarding the asylum seekers from Belarus and many companies which have moved to Latvia from Belarus IT companies. This is something that we really are looking forward to support those IT companies trying to work in Latvia.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I
Yeah,
can continue, because I think that what Ines told, that it's very closely related with the Lithuanian case. In recent years, a lot of developments of legal acts and related to them were related on highly skilled workers and their family members in order to fix the integration and also accessibility to services and anything. So we even have different centers, especially for highly skilled workers, where can receive how it's in English, I don't know the word, but they can find all services in one place, and so they are really trying to
One-stop shop.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, this one. So I think that it's very, very clear that the strategy of the country is first of all on such kind of migrants.
I can continue.
Go ahead.
So as I said in my presentation, as I showed, the first idea of opening up towards immigration was related to attracting highly qualified. And what was really a little bit funny, when we had this first migration law in 2004, it basically meant that the restriction towards integration were leveled down, and the general perception was that this is enough. You just level down the restrictions and the people come anyway. And then there was the big surprise that the highly qualified don't come in large numbers. I mean, surprise, it's a global competition. There are English-speaking countries where international migrants can lock in a little easier than going to Germany and having to learn German. So it was like a learning process for the German government to develop more sophisticated attraction strategies for the highly qualified. And I think one major point was to open up the third education market, meaning that the universities internationalized a lot with the idea to attract those talents already when they are shaped. And nowadays we have high numbers of especially Chinese and Indian students who come to Germany. I mean, nobody knows if they decide to stay for good. But I think you also, if you think it in longitudinal ways, you have to accept that especially highly qualified persons who are already being mobilized have a high potential to become mobile again. So you cannot really have this static approach that you think you just have to attract those immigrants one time and then they stay forever and they pay your rent and so on. But no, it's a highly circulating and transnational situation, and you just have to be aware of that. And the last point in this context is that we did quite a lot of research on staying motivations of international students in Germany and of high qualified labor migrants. And one major aspect was that many felt very comfortable in the moment for a medium term or short term stay, but regarding the idea to stay for good, they really brought other arguments to the fore, which was mainly the argument that they had the impression they would always will be perceived as strangers. And this brings me again to this aspect of diversity, of equal rights. Those international labor migrants see very well and have very good information about discrimination in the countries where they are heading to, and yeah, for like the decision to stay for good is also shaped along the aspect if they could integrate into society, if they would be allowed to be part of the society and be not discriminated.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, the global talents are in a kind of a privileged position because it's relatively easy for them to pick and choose the country with the or city with the best offer. And I remember our discussion with the DG about the necessity not only to attract international students, but actually work on the retention, what you have mentioned, like the moment when you become a graduate, you see that you are isolated from the labor market. So the integration should happen already during the studies. But Pasi, Finland is considered as a role model when it comes to global talent. So what can you share with us? What are the lessons learned? Rolling model. Yes.
Maybe rolling model rather than role model. All what has been said sounds very familiar. The majority of Finnish society and politics is at the moment very eager to increase the number of high-skilled immigrants and global talents. And I must say, following these discussions already for more than 20 years, I think that it won't be that easy. That so far Finland has received work-based immigration practically only from Estonia, and the last 5 years Estonians have been not too interested in Finland anymore, which I somehow can understand also. But there is very much discussion, and I think something I could add to what has already been said is that we know from research that one reason why Finland is not so interesting in the eyes of those who are choosing the country where they are going is that they are insecure whether there also will be work for a spouse and good education opportunities for their children. So in that sense, Finland is trying to develop integration services that for those that would come together with those skilled migrants, because that would help this international recruitment to Finland, more generally speaking.
Indeed, it's not only about the work for the global talent, but it's about the whole ecosystem, whole talent ecosystem. And without all these elements working together, it's difficult to reach our objectives. Thank you very much. We are now in the final round of our discussion, and instead of concluding remarks, I would like to actually ask you to name one or two, maximum three, key elements that constitute, in your opinion, the fundamentals of successful and sustainable integration policy. And I would like to start with Ines now. Be short. We have 7 minutes left.
Okay, I would say that the first thing is developing a dialogue with all involved groups, namely municipalities, migrants, minorities, different providers of services, which is needed to develop services as well as acceptable, and this can be developed just in dialogue, being aware of what are the needs and how to develop these services as good as possible.
Thank you. Pasi.
My first advice would be that abandon the nationalist idea of a mono-ethnic, monocultural society. Give cultural rights, cultural leeway to all those groups and communities that agree with the basic principles of a liberal democracy. And then focus on strengthening the sense of unity among all people living in that society and to cooperate with each other. That would be my message.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Giedre?
I think that it's very important to have a strategic approach, and especially on long-term integration measures, to think about not only how to invite and welcome these people, but also to think about their proper incorporation into the society. I really would agree with what Ines told, the dialogue with the host society members and new arrivals.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Birgit?
All right. I think also regarding the political strategy, it's necessary to stress the commonalities of peoples living in a country rather than stressing the problems that they could bring, and really focus on the benefit for the whole community for being open and being inviting for migrants, value what they bring, whatever it is, and grow together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much to all of you. That brings us, unfortunately, to the end of our conversation. What I think we learned again is that the locality, local context matter, that we cannot generalize when it comes to the integration policies. Indeed, the countries that we discussed today, but EU in general, unites a variety of member states with a variety of frameworks. Also, our welfare regimes, for example, have some limitations, and it might also influence the tools that we have in our hands. It was also very informative and enriching to learn that it's not only about third country nationals, but it's also about ethnic minorities that were always with us, as well as our own citizens that emigrated but might wish to return and should receive proper reintegration support. Finally, what is equally important is, of course, the issue of the public perception and also public discourse around the migration. And of course, the question remains how to create this convincing narrative about benefits, about the positive side of migration, while still staying realistic. Yes, so that's the end of our panel, but surely not the end of our discussions. Today, I want to thank you, our distinguished panelists, for your precious time during this busy autumn period, and thank you to all our viewers, wherever you are.